You're listening to The Morning Show with Dave Hyde on 99.2 Hermitage FM, online and on your smart speaker.
I have Eliot Kennedy on the phone. How are you, Eliot?
I'm good, mate. How are you doing?
Not too bad. How are you finding it working from home?
Do you know what? I love it. I love it because I choose to work from home, and I've got a lovely studio in Sheffield, but you know, phone ringing, people coming in for a coffee, dropping in to see how you, it's quite distracting sometimes. So working from home, I've got a great dog. We've got the woods behind my house. So got your routine with going out in the woods in the morning, coming back, coffee, sit down, have a good working day. So I love it. I've been so creative in this time.
Well, I seen a great video that looks like you doing an interview from home, and I'm very jealous about that microphone you've got in front of you. It looks like a Neumann.
It is indeed. It is. It's a TLM. It's a beautiful little mic, and this is the thing nowadays. You don't actually need much equipment. Most of my stuff is, although I've got some lovely little, tabletop synths and boutique synthesizers. Everything's really inside my computer. I've invested quite a lot in an amazing sample library, so I can pretty much create anything I want, from full-blown orchestras to very acoustic sounding things. A great microphone and you're off to the races, aren't you? That's really all I need. On
a bit of a selfish level, because people probably don't want to hear it on the radio, but are you a hardware person or are you an in-a-box producer?
Well, I used to be very much hardware. We had a big mixing console in the studio. But as time has gone on, and especially having to, and this is how these things, your behavior changes because you have to, working on things like Finding Neverland on Broadway, writing a musical, I had to do everything from my laptop because I was to and fro from New York all the time. So I'd set up my little laptop rig in New York. And what I found is that I bought a spare pair of speakers and a remote cue, so I wasn't having to take loads of gear. And they're in New York, so they're in our agent's office. And so anytime I'd go over there, I'd just go and get them, put them in my room, or if a hotel or an apartment, whatever. And I'd be able to do everything. So it meant that I was working far more in the room. So it's in the box. It meant that you get used to not using the console and all the rest of it. And now, of course, that's my thing. So everything's in the box. I have external synthesizer. I love working with real musicians, of course. So I record as much as possible of real music, real players. But essentially, I do everything in the box nowadays, mix everything digitally. And it means I can literally work everywhere.
So another selfish question. What's your go-to plugin? Is it a Slate? Is it a Wave? Or
my newest favorite, there's two newest favorite things I've come across. There's a plugin for vocals called Dopamine, which is just unbelievable. I think it's Overloud who do it. It's the best vocal plugin I've come across. It just takes a vocal and makes it sound like a record. And then the other thing is a reverb by a company called Denise. It's a plate reverb that, again, just everything sits in it beautifully. A reverb can be like quite muddy or whatever. This just is one of the best things I've ever heard because it's got compression and everything on it. Dopamine inside this Denise reverb has just changed my life. I love it.
Oh, that's fantastic. So I've just started using the CLA slap reverb, the echo reverb that Wave's just released.
Oh, yeah.
Which is absolutely amazing.
Yeah. It's really good. It's wonderful. Listen, Chris Lord-Alge, all of his stuff is great. That stuff he did in Waves, with the all the drum stuff and the acoustic, I use those all the time. And I actually love his bucket thing, the way he mixes on SSL and all of that. It's fantastic. But that, yes, I bought that recently. And it's fantastic. All of his plugins are great.
Things you do when you're on radio and the things you get into, like playing with mixes and stuff like that, I love it.
Yeah.
You just go down a road I'm not supposed to go down. Can I ask you a question? Love Breaks Down, which is the new single. Yeah. It's a soulful ballad. It tells a good story.
Yeah. It's
got to be based on a personal experience.
Yeah, it's about my divorce, mate. It's a very real and horrible situation, but songwriters have a luxury of using those situations as your sort of say your talent as a cathartic exercise to get it out of you and turn it into something positive. Because I've always said, the bit that connects us is honesty. When you hear that in a song, you can't help but respond. There's the human part of you that says, I've been there. I felt that guy is telling the truth, And I think that I've always tried to strive to say that to young artists that, listen, the bit that's going to connect you as an artist is your humanity. It's honesty, humility, all of those things that people respond to because we've all experienced them. And and there's no better example for me than this song.
And do you find yourself sort of going out the way to do more things to sort of get that experience?
I think that if you're prepared, I use the word surrender quite a lot because it's difficult, because it's in our nature to want to control situations or whatever. And I always try to stress to people, look, the thing you need to do is surrender to the situation and experience it and live it and try to be more in the moment, because you're going to get more out of it. People are too busy taking photos of whatever and video. I tend to not do that. I tend to try to absorb as much of what's going on.
Yeah.
And then you've got great stock for experiences or writing songs and, emotions. Because let's be honest, what we're talking about here is the song is a vehicle to transfer emotion. And, there's no better way than just living those experiences, even if they're painful. Because let's be honest, the saddest part about being a human being is we tend to only really learn anything through pain.
Yes.
Because we're too busy enjoying ourselves when things are great. But when things are painful, that's when we take stock. That's when we reevaluate ourselves and we question whether we've done the right thing or whether we could do it better. So you improve, and next time around you don't make the same mistake. Or at least we endeavour to. But unless you're able to surrender to the experience, you're going to miss it. You're going to miss the opportunity to learn. So I'm all about that. It makes you a little bit more vulnerable. It means you have to take a few more risks emotionally. But do you know what? It served me, and that's just the way I choose to live.
What made you come out with the album? Because obviously you've been writing songs for a number of years, and you've wrote for some amazing artists.
Yeah.
One of them I've got a question about you surrendering to, but I'll ask you about that in a minute.
Okay.
I want to know how that song came about, especially with you saying how you write and surrender stuff. It's an interesting question, but what sort of got you into it?
Well, I had a big birthday, my 50th birthday, and I decided to do a gig and raise some money for charity, which was wonderful. We raised $100,000, which was wonderful. And I invited artists that I'd written hits for, and Take That Boys turned up, S Club and Alfie Boe and, Heather Small and lots of others. And it was just a fantastic night. And the thing I've enjoyed about my career, and I endeavoured to be as varied as I could as a songwriter, to make it about the artist I was writing for rather than it being about me. So it makes my gigs quite a variety show as a result.
Yeah.
So if the artist wasn't there, I would sing them. And in this instance, I went on stage and started the show. And apparently all the rest of the guys were in my dressing room listening. And Alfie Boe turned to Gaz and said, "Who's singing?" And Gary said, "It's El. What do you think we're doing here? It's his birthday party." And he went, "I didn't know he was a singer. I thought he was like the bass player in the band,
When you say Gary, which Gary do you mean?
Gary Barlow, sorry.
It's all right.
Sorry. Gary's just my best mate, so he's,
That's all right.
Gaz. So afterwards, Gaz called me and he went, "El, you've got to make an album." He said, "I've done these gigs because poor old Gaz, I drag him out to every charity event I can get him to, And he says, "El, I do these gigs for you. You always sell these out. You've got an audience. You've got to make an album." I just thought he was nuts. And I thought, oh, he'll forget about it. About a month later, I went to see the boys on tour. And he'd arranged for it to be an agent. I looked at him and I went, "What is up with you?" And he went, "El, I'm not letting it go, mate. You've got to make an album. It's time. You're a singer. You've got to make it." So I thought, well, and then of course this happened. COVID, lockdown, being at home. I thought, well, if I'm not going to do it now, I probably never will do it. So I just started thinking about it, taking it a bit more seriously. And what I've always said to young artists is an artist makes an album for themselves first. That they're proud and they can just put on and not sit there making excuses or coughing over the bit that's embarrassing like we did with our old demos. But you've got to be happy with it. You've got to say, this is who I am, warts and all, whether you like it or not, sort of thing, and be all right about that. So I've made an album of that. Those songs that I love, that era of music, which is sort of yacht, pop, rock, hence the title, A Yacht Named Sue. It's a throwback to sort of late 70s, early 80s, Hall & Oates, Steely Dan, that kind of Doobie Brothers vibe. So that's it. That's the album I've made.
I've got to be honest, your voice, though, is so, not croonerish, but like the Luther Vandross smooth.
Ah, that's good. I like that sentence. I'll stick with that one.
It's an awesome sound.
Thank you, mate. That's very kind of you.
And I've obviously had a sneak peek at the album, and the songs on there are amazing. Just however you come up with them, how you wrote them, when you wrote them, the stories they tell are fantastic. And with your voice, just Outstanding. And I've noticed as well, when I started looking for the interview, you did like a live gig online.
Yeah.
And that, when you started singing some of the songs that we all sort of love and know, like Picture of You, I was like, okay, I now need to investigate what else you did, you know. And then you start coming across things that you wrote with Bryan Adams, like When You've Gone.
Yeah.
Aretha Franklin, Dame Shirley Bassey, Celine Dion, Take That, the Spice Girls, and the one song when you said you have to surrender.
Yeah.
Can you please ask me what you surrendered to write the lyrics or write the bits to Bring It All Back by S Club 7?
Well, I'll tell you, actually, that's a good question. I've got a good answer for it. What was interesting about working with those young artists in the 90s and whatever, they you know, we actually, Biff and I had this conversation, Biff Stannard, who was also one of the Spice Girls guys, when we were doing X Factor. And Biff said to me one day, El, can you think of anyone more qualified to be doing this artist development thing than us right now? And I said, what do you mean? He said, we came from an era where a band that had been either put together or auditioned for, etc., was acceptable. Kids didn't care. It went. We were at the start of a wave when it was okay. And then, of course, the next generation of that was X Factor, where artists are literally coming from a talent show. And again, people don't care. It's just talent is talent. So we were at the beginning of a wave of pop that sort of changed everything. The Spice Girls opened American radio to pop bands. All of those, you know, artists like Britney Spears and Backstreet Boys, they've all got the Spice Girls to thank as far as I'm concerned. Oh, yeah. So we were part of this sort of movement of new pop during the late 90s onwards. And we, you know, but when it comes to working with young artists, I would always make sure they felt involved in it, because otherwise they're just people just singing other people's songs. So I remember sitting with the seven of them in a cafe in Sheffield and said, what do you want to do? Yeah. And they looked at me and bewildered, kind of went, do you mean you care about what we say? I said, you're the artist. This is your album. You're going to have to sing these songs thousands of times. It's got to feel like your record. What do you want? What are you into? And they all said, well, you know what? We really love the Jacksons, and we think that sort of family of thing, you know, vibe would really work for us. Boom, there we go. Bring It All Back is a sort of Jacksons-y kind of vibe.
The opening chords on that song, I can see that. Yeah, I can see where that comes from.
So it started at lunchtime, an honest conversation saying, what do you want to do? And then being so enamored with the idea of having an opinion, which is why when you hear those, they just sound so happy in that song. Yeah. They sound so full of life, those, because they are. You know, it was important to me what they wanted to do, what they felt like doing. And of course, because, you know, you have to go out and when you're promoting these things, sing it over and over and over again. If you feel like you're involved in your song, you're going to feel more involved in it.
Well, the thing is, we found there's some naughty lyrics also in 5 when the lights go out, but we'll go... No, that's a question for another time, I think. It took years to figure that out.
Yeah, okay.
Just one of my last few questions. Is there a lyric that you wish you'd written that you didn't come up with in a song?
Oh, there's so many of those songs. I mean, but, you know, your lipstick mark's still on your coffee cup. Is that not a winner of a like... That song is probably one of the most perfect pop songs that Gary's ever written, you know, anyone's ever written. But that feeling, the melancholy of breaking up with someone and she's just gone and you're sat there in your living room and you look down at her mug and see her lipstick. Oh, God, it's heartbreaking.
It is.
Do you know what I mean? It's so beautiful, but painful, and you know that's what makes him very special.
I think there's a great thing between you and Gary Barlow, that the stuff you come up with is just so unique and so heartfelt that you have to feel the emotion.
Yeah. Well, listen, Gaz is a disciple of what I've just been saying. I think that it's also, it's just not new. I'm not trying to come up with anything new or claim it, because I think people who have succeed and continue doing it for a career, you work out pretty quickly that what people are looking for is inspiration. You know, first and foremost, people just want to be inspired, whether it be, you know, looking at a painting, whether it be looking at architecture or listening to a song or whatever. People seek inspiration on a football pitch, on an ice hockey rink, in my case. You look for people doing what they love and they're really good at, because I think that inspires you. I think it's the bit of the human spirit that is the most alive part of us. So if you can embrace that and say, this is what I am and this is what I do, then you're going to have a career doing it.
Totally agree with you. There's got to be a passion as well, hasn't there?
Yeah, absolutely.
With the new album, A Yacht Named Sue, coming out later this year, and the current single, When Love Breaks Down, which is out now, do you have any other projects that you're working on, or is there a new album to come in 2021?
Well, do you know what? I thought I would put this album out and see if people liked it. And if they do, then I'll think about making another one. Of course I would. I can't wait to get gigging again like every other musician. But in this instance, for the first time ever, I can't wait to actually go out and play those songs, you know. So the album's going to come very soon, hopefully within a month. And then hopefully when we're back in the world again, we can start performing. Right now, I'm in the middle of writing a new musical, which is exciting. It's taking up a lot of my time and energy and is difficult.
I would say tell me more, but I bet you can't talk about it.
It's well, I can tell you a little bit about it. It's, you know, that iconic photograph of the guys eating lunch on the girder high above New York.
Oh, yeah.
You know that famous photo?
Yeah.
It's a musical about that photo, essentially. It's called Empire State Dreams, and it's about the immigrants that built New York.
Oh, that sounds fantastic.
It's great fun. It starts very funny. It starts with that photograph of the guys coming down on a girder and singing about what's in their lunchbox. If you look at the photo, they're all eating lunch. And the way we get to know where they're from is they sing about, the Italian guy sings about his calzone, the Polish guy about his kielbasa sausage. It's funny, but we get to go around the world and see where they're from as a result. So it's that mixture of heartbreak and love and very real struggles, what was going on in the world at that time, and two Irish boys that come over from Dublin to find a new life. And it's turning into a monster of a project, but I'm loving it. This
is where I should say, right, you've got a piano nearby. Give us the first few chords.
So far, so listen, I'll be glad to come back and play some of the musical when I've finished it.
Oh, that'd be an absolute honour. Eliot,
awesome.
I think we've run over, but no, I could speak to you for hours about your music and your songs.
Mate, you're very kind.
Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you, brother.
We're going to go straight into your new track, which is When Love Breaks Down. Thank you very much for joining me. It's a fantastic track.
Great stuff. Thank you, bud.
Speak soon.
See you, mate.
You're listening to The Morning Show with Dave Hyde on 99.2 Hermitage FM, online and on your smart speaker.